Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Short Hops with Wichita Wingnuts manager Kevin Hooper. Short Hops is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Wichita manager questions about the Wingnuts, baseball, or sports in general, or just seek Kevin's wisdom about life events that may be happening with you. This week we have an exciting program for you as Kevin talks about the recent additions to the Wingnuts pitching staff that should add some real quality depth to the team. He shares with us his insights about what's going on with the NFL and how the Kansas City Chiefs seem to be coming to life, and we learn if Rob could actually hit a Kevin Hooper pitch. So let's get right to Short Hops. Well, let us welcome back manager Kevin Hooper this week. So, Kevin, let's first of all begin by talking about Wingnuts updates you had. You had a few signings and a trade that went on, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. We're really excited, obviously, about acquiring Matt Larkins from Amarillo. He's been a solid ace for them down in the South, and Amarillo is a tough place to pitch. I'm sure you've heard, that's a hitter's delight, definitely a hitter's ballpark, and for him to do what he's done down there has been pretty special. So got a chance to meet him when I managed the All-Star game up in Winnipeg, and really liked being around him, and Bobby Brown's a good friend of mine, and he's been his guy. Bobby raves about him, and we're excited to add him to what I feel like is already a pretty good rotation. So to add a Matt Larkins to that rotation will be pretty special, I'm hoping, and give us a good chance to win on any given night that he's out there. And Seth Harvey's a guy who aged out of the Frontier League that, Dennis Pelfrey is managing now, who used to be in Gary. He's managing up in Florence, and that's where Seth was last year. He's a Milwaukee Brewer farmhand who, as you know, we have quite a few of those guys, one of them being Brent Dean, who has caught Harvey before and had nothing but great things to say about him, not only as a pitcher but as a person as well, as did Pelf up in Florence. So very excited to add Seth to our bullpen. And Richard Ruff is actually a guy I saw down in the South Florida Winter League that I ended up signing out there. He's a converted catcher and hasn't spent a ton of time on the mound, but I saw him back-to-back days throwing 94, 95 with my own eyes. So definitely like the arm. Hopefully we can polish it. He's walked quite a few guys in the past, but hopefully we can clean some things up and get him on track. So 3 pitchers that we've signed and or dealt for in the last week or so since we spoke, and very excited about all of them.
Can I ask, in terms of Matt Larkins, your staff looked like it was pretty much set, depending on whether Scott Richmond was coming back. Now, does this mean that you might not be getting Scott back at this point?
Yeah, I think Scott's leaning towards probably retiring. So that's something that we'll push. We'll push as long as we can, as long as there's still a glimpse of him possibly playing. We're gonna push our buttons and try to get him back to Wichita. But Lark is just I'm not going to say an insurance guy by any means, because he'd be the ace of a lot of staffs in this league. So just another quality addition to our rotation.
Now, with the situation with Matt Larkins, I wanted to jump into the schedule, but for those who don't know this portion of it, can you elaborate a little bit about how the league is moving from 13 teams to 12, so then we can kind of discuss the schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. Grand Prairie and Amarillo are going to combine. They're going to be one ball club and play 25 games out of Grand Prairie and 25 out of Amarillo. Then they'll play, the 50 that they would normally play on the road. So they'll combine and be one team, and so that makes it 12. That drops us from 13, obviously, to the 12, and we're excited about that. We actually play, I think, Laredo 17 times, Joplin 16, and then that Texas team will play 14 times. So quite a few, 47. I think I added close to 50 divisional games, and we're obviously excited about that. I want to play as many divisional games as we possibly can, and, to give yourself a chance to gain some ground in your own division. So excited about it. Back to 4 teams. We've here for a few years in a row now. We've been in the division that's had the 5 teams, so it's nice to get back to 4 and on an even playing field with the other divisions, 4 teams in each.
So when you looked at the schedule when it came out officially this last week, Thursday, was there anything that kind of stood out with you besides the big 17-day road trip that you have?
No, nothing really. Nothing really crazy that stood out. We didn't get to go to Winnipeg. We get to go there. We'll go back there this year. Obviously, getting our first glimpse and being able to go to St. Paul is going to be pretty special, a place that we didn't get to go to last year, so it'll be our first glimpse at that new stadium. and we actually don't go till really late in the season. I believe it's in August 20-something, I believe, is when we go to St. Paul. So a little later in the season, but definitely excited to see that ballpark, and always exciting for me to see George with the relationship we have. And unfortunately, that's the only time, well, I say unfortunately, maybe fortunately, if we're both loaded like we were last year, we only get to see those guys for 3 games.
Then the All-Star game will be in St. Paul this season, so would you be traveling to see that or to be at the game regardless, or?
Probably not. Being far away as it is from here, probably not. And typically, and I'm sure they'll do it the same, the managers that were in the championship round from the year before will manage those clubs. So that would be in Cavilla and Montgomery. They'll be managing. And obviously, I would think Montgomery will have George on his staff. If not, if Montgomery doesn't want to manage it, then obviously I'm sure he's going to ask George to do so. But probably won't be in attendance, but hopefully a lot of our players will be.
Well, the season you guys have had the last few years, I'm sure there'll be quite a big Wichita representation there.
I hope so.
I wanted to just bring up with you quickly too, because this seems to be quite a trend early on here in the off season. 2 guys signed by major league organizations. Patrick Johnson, the pitcher of the year, goes to Pittsburgh, and Spencer Mahoney signed by the Yankees. So this is looking good for the league, I would think, overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime we get guys signed out of this league, it's a good thing. It just helps with recruiting, not only for myself, us having so many guys signed that we did this summer, but for everybody in the league. Guys want to know how many guys are getting signed out of the league, and that's always a bonus, no matter who that is out of our league. So, because we're always battling against the Atlantic League and the Frontier League, it seems. So any advantage we can get is a great one. And congrats to those 2 guys for getting signed as well.
Yeah, I think that's 5 so far this off season already. So that's pretty impressive early on like that. So
yeah, no doubt. Hopefully it continues and we can add more and more to it.
So let us begin with our fan questions for this week. We first look at Jeff from Wichita, who would like to know which of these you're more excited about for the league this year: no Can-Am games or no international rule?
That's a pretty easy one for me, Jeff. That's, if you've listened to any prior to this interview we're doing tonight, the international rule, no doubt about it, the international rule. I think I made it known throughout the season what my thoughts were on that. Finally got my wish, and that's gone. So definitely an international rule. I'll miss playing the Can-Am, though. That was always nice for us to be able to take that trip, especially when we had to leave for that NBC tournament. It'd give us something different, some places some guys haven't been, new ballparks, stuff like that. So I'll miss not playing the Can-Am in that sense, but other than that, definitely the international rule wins that one, though.
Jack from Oklahoma City would like to know, what do you plan to do with the extra player you have for the season, with the roster going to 23 players? Will that be a position player or an extra pitcher?
Jack, that's a very good question. I don't know if I could say I would decide right now. It just kind of depends on how our roster shapes out. If we've got a couple long guys we think that can go long out of the 6-man bullpen, it might be an extra position player. If not, it might be an extra pitcher. So that'll just kind of depend, Jack, on how our roster shakes out. And you know what? Depending on salary, we could end up carrying the 22 again, but I don't see that happen. I see us taking advantage of that extra 23rd guy the best that we can. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting that we're able to have that player all year and how many guys utilize that and how many don't.
The one thing I like about the addition of Matt Larkins for you is that you have 5 guys, excluding Richmond, let's say that he doesn't stay, that can give you 7 innings. This isn't like a 5-inning pitching staff you have here at all.
Absolutely. No, you're exactly right. We've got, as we call them, innings eaters. We've got quite a few innings eaters, which is always nice. And especially if you can build the tail end of that bullpen to be strong, it really shortens the game.
Absolutely. McGill from Wichita would like to know, is the league increasing the salary cap to accommodate the extra player?
Very good question, Miguel. They are not, though. We're sticking with the $115,000 salary cap. The change we did make, though, which will be interesting for folks to hear, is we had the 1/2 rule. So whoever your highest paid guy was, only half of his salary counted towards the cap. Well, now we've gone back to the 1/3, 2/3 rule. So your highest paid guy, only a third of his counts, and your second highest paid guy, 2/3 of his counts. So it actually helps. Since they didn't raise the salary cap, I wanted to go back to that 1/3, 2/3, which will really help out our salary cap and be able to get us some quality players, no doubt. Even add in that 23rd guy.
That's great. Dave from Chicago would like to know, Derek Jeter denies that he used to give his dates a gift basket after their initial date. Didn't he drop his level of coolness like 4 levels by letting us know that?
Oh, that makes me laugh, Dave. That's a funny one. I had never heard that about Jeter. Doing some research there, Dave, for sure. I don't know if Jeter's a pretty cool guy, and in order to drop his level of coolness 4 levels, I think it would maybe take a little more than that. That idea that he might have done, but it's interesting, very interesting to those single guys out there. Maybe a little tip of advice, one way or another, to do or to don't do. So good drop in though, Dave. I always like those questions that can bring some laughs out of us.
This is a question I wanted to include in myself because I believe you had said on the previous show that you had known Lloyd McClendon. He was named the Tigers AAA manager today. How do you see him working in with the organization there?
Oh, I see him doing a tremendous job. I mean, this is a big league manager, a guy who just came off managing the big leagues. He was with us in 2005 with Trammell when Trammell was our manager in 2005, and he was on the staff, and I like him a lot. He's a hard worker. He's been around the game for a long time, and he's managed and coached at the major league level for a long time. So, what a great hire! I think it's a guy who had some history with the Tigers, and that's a good get by Toledo there and Detroit, no doubt about it. To have a guy like that managing their AAA club, where a lot of guys are going to be on the cusp of going to the big leagues. Congrats to them, because that's a great sign.
What I like about him, great educator of the game, I've always thought.
Yes. Yep. And that's, you've heard me say many times, that comes with experience as well. This is a guy who's been around the game for a long time. It's just good to see. That's going to be good for them kids at that AAA level, no doubt about it.
We have a couple of questions from Bruce from Sioux City. The first one is, Andy Van Slyke said a close source to him told him that most of the Dodger players were sick of Yasiel Puig. His son plays for the team, and if that isn't his source, didn't that put his son in a real awkward position with everyone thinking that it must have been the son?
Yeah, slick. Oh, and Andy was on our staff as well in Detroit. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't.
He was with us, and he was with us in 2005 as well. And he kind of coached our outfielders and was our first base coach there with Detroit. So a relationship with him as well. And yeah, when he comes out and says that, a source close to him, and his son plays on the team, a lot of people are going to be intrigued by that and wonder where that came from. So, yeah, that's a tough spot, no doubt. And I think that puts his son in a little awkward position as well, Bruce, because, I'm sure everybody's thinking that that's where it came from, whether it did or not. Him saying that, everybody's going to think in the commonplace that his son was the one that brought that out.
Bruce would also like to know, he looks at a guy like Yasiel Puig and wonders if there is a point that despite the amount of talent that a player has, they simply aren't worth it.
Yeah, we've talked about this many times on our show, and I'm sure you could answer this one for me. It's tough. It's one of those tough deals, People probably call me crazy, but it's just the way he carries himself and acts. I don't know if he'd be able to put a wingnut uniform on. It's just one of those situations and guys that, this is a team. It's a team game, and when guys bring out the I in themselves and make that a little more important than the we, I have a tough time with that. So I think this is just another one of those situations.
Kevin, I'm kind of curious from you as a former major leaguer who understands not only the locker room situation, but you were in Detroit, which is a large media area, so lots of reporters around looking, trying to find the stories of what's going on in the locker room and those kind of things. If there's a player that other players don't like, can that be hidden from the rest of outside of the locker room?
I mean, I'm sure it can. I think it's tough, though, at times. You know, a lot of times, like you said, and it's crazy. I mean, after a game, I'm sure many listeners haven't had the luxury of being in a Major League clubhouse after a game, but after a game, it's nuts in there. I mean, like you said, with all the media and everybody around, and you know, whether you can hide it or not, I'm sure you can tell just by a lot of facial expressions of guys on the team that, you know, what they think of an individual. So I think it'd be tough to hide it. And, you know, something's going to happen throughout a season. It's a long season, 162 games. Guys are with each other day in and day out and, you know, get on each other's nerves at times, and stuff happens and stuff comes out, and it makes it tough. It makes it tough to hide when you have 25 guys fighting for that ultimate goal, and then, like you said, one guy may not be on that same page. It's going to come out.
Okay. Ethan from Topeka would like to know, David Ortiz was such a big guy in baseball, but do you think that the revelations of his steroid use are going to hinder his chances of getting into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, another tough deal here. You know, anytime the steroids gets brought up with a player now, it's tough. And yeah, I would think it's definitely going to hinder. It's hindered all those other guys. So, you know, why wouldn't it hinder Poppy's as well? It'll be interesting to see what happens with all that and what comes of it. But just another sad deal if that's the case, because that's a guy who's done a lot of good things for the game.
I'm interested to see if you think if you see this as kind of a difference. So most of the guys that we've been introduced have been involved in steroids, McGuire and Bonds, if these guys really use, let's just, the people that are speculating that they're ones, were guys that were using it towards the end of their career. I think we'd agree that David Ortiz probably had a more significant career after the revelation of steroids came out, and, you know, the last 8, 9, 10 years, his performance in the postseason alone has really been beyond reproach kind of thing. Do you think that might make a difference because he seemed to have been better since the revelation about steroids, or does that not even matter at all, do you think?
That's an interesting question and a valid point, I think. But steroids are steroids, I think, no matter when you use them, whether, you know, we could say his career was better before or after or during, you know. I'm not sure if it's going to matter or not. That's a big word. That's a big word in the game of baseball, steroids. And anytime you get, you know, when that comes up with your name, it's tough. It's tough to get away from it. But like I said, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, because he has done a lot of good things in the last couple of years. And as I mentioned, a lot of good things for the game of baseball itself.
Well, we get to our favorite person here on the show, Chiefs fan, who has a couple of questions for Kevin this week. First of all, we begin with Kevin, 4 in a row. The Chiefs are going to the playoffs, right?
I like your confidence, Chiefs fan. I like your confidence. And you know what? I heard numerous times yesterday when watching them, they have the easiest schedule coming up the rest of the season. So why not? Let's make a run here and let's get into the playoffs. So it'd be exciting. It'd be really exciting. But it's been fun watching them and what they've been able to do, winning 4 in a row, because we keep talking about that 1-5 start, and here they are, you know, rattling off 4 in a row. So excited to watch them again next weekend and see what happens.
Going back to our Chiefs fan, he says, my friends think I'm crazy for saying this, but wouldn't you agree this is the best job Andy Reid has ever done? No real quarterback, loses Jamal Charles, and the team is riding a 4-game winning streak anyway. That is just impressive, wouldn't you say?
Very impressive. Very impressive. I don't know why your friends would think that you're crazy for saying that anyways, especially, like you said, Jamal being out was the big blow. Here you are, you lose your best player on your team, and you're not going to overcome that. And obviously Wes has come in and done a tremendous job at the running back position for Jamal, but to put a guy like that and to put him out for the full season and be able to do what they've done is very impressive, and I think that's a lot of credit to Andy Reid. You know, I heard something pretty good that Alex Smith said yesterday about Andy. Just, you know, some guys are just coaches and other guys know how to handle players, and Andy Reid's both of those. And I think that was a huge compliment to Andy from Alex. Just mentioning the job that he does and the tremendous job that is. And I've always been an Andy Reid fan. I was really excited when they hired him, and I hope that he's going to be there for a while and can do some good things for him.
Packers fan would like to know from you, after those 2 big passes Aaron Rodgers made late yesterday, do you see him as right back in form?
I like seeing Aaron Rodgers fired up yesterday. That's for sure. You know, he's. I know I've spoken about Brady before on the show and the excitement he shows and just showing how much he cares. And Rodgers has a lot of those same characteristics, I do believe. And you know, he's a leader, and you know, he doesn't say a ton. He's quiet the way he goes about things and whatnot, but you know, he's tremendous. And it seemed like he was back to gunslinging at times yesterday, like his old self. So interesting to see what the Packers can do. Lacey came on pretty well as well, I thought, yesterday. So if they can get him going, you know, they might be headed in the right direction.
Don from Wichita would like to know from you, how do you think Wichita State will do in basketball this season?
I think they're going to have a good season. I really do. Fred VanVleet, obviously their point guard, who's one of the best in the country. He's been injured with a little hamstring deal. I heard today they're going to hold him out this weekend for the tournament they're in, but they're going to be good. They got some really good freshmen, some young guys that I think are going to end up being all right. It's going to be a learning curve for them, as it is any freshman. You can't expect those guys to just go right in. Then they're going to get Connor Frankamp, the transfer from KU, who's a Wichita guy, born and raised, and he can shoot the lights out. He's a tremendous shooter. Bill had a lot. His first game that he can come back and play is December 12th. So once they get him back and get Fred healthy, I think they're going to be just fine.
That's when you know you built a really quality college basketball program, when a person leaves Kansas to come to your program. So that's really saying something right there.
No doubt. Absolutely.
Brian from Wichita would like to know what your favorite part of Thanksgiving is.
Definitely just being around family. That's my favorite part by far, but I guess a close second would be the food that you get to eat. So nothing like a good turkey dinner, but definitely a time being with family, you know, friends, and you know, just watching football as well. Always a good football day there on Thanksgiving on Thursday. So looking forward to another one of those this coming Thursday. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there listening.
Carol from Hayesville would like to know, are you a crazy Black Friday person who will be up at 1 a.m. looking for deals?
I'm not a huge Black Friday person. My wife's a pretty big Black Friday person. We're always looking for deals. We're always looking for any type of deals we can get for, whether it be ourselves, maybe a household, something that we need throughout the house, or a lot of times for our children for Christmas presents. So always anxious to see what comes out on those Black Friday deals. I know that's a huge deal for a lot of people, and a lot of people stand in line at a lot of different places waiting for that right deal. So, but we've been known to, I know Walmart started them now on Thanksgiving Day, actually, and starting their deals at 6 p.m. And there was one year where we headed up there on Thanksgiving night, just went walking around. It was a madhouse. I'll tell you, that's why I try to stay away from them, just because of the people. There's just so many people, and it's just crazy. Elbows flying everywhere trying to get that one good deal that everybody's looking for. So not a huge Black Friday guy, but you know, I like to see the deals and what's out there and what's available for sure.
Our last question of this week comes from Lori from New Hope, who has no respect for one of the people on the show, who would like to know, how many pitches do you think that it would take that you would throw, Kevin, before Rob would finally get a hit?
Well, Lori, I have not seen Rob's skills, so that's a tough one to answer, or his athletic ability. I haven't been able to really see him do a whole lot besides sit down on the couch or a chair next to me and interview me. So that's a tough one to answer, Lori. But I'm gonna give Rob the benefit of the doubt because of how much I throw batting practice. I feel like I could find his bat pretty quick. How about that?
I might just have to stick it out there.
Find Rob. So yeah, exactly. But I tell you what, maybe that's something, Lori, that we could definitely schedule for future. So whether you could be part of that or not, I'm not so sure. But maybe we could at least videotape and see how many it took, and then whenever that did happen, we could bring that question back up. So, but I'm gonna give Rob the benefit of the doubt and say within 3.
Oh, look at that! Within 3. I'm
there
not
you go.
as inept
within
as
3 pitches.
I'm not as inept as some would think. How about that? And by the way, I like the videotape idea, because if it took me like 30, we could always edit that down to 3.
So we can always go back at it, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, Kevin. Well, thank you for joining us this week.
Thanks as always, Robert. Have a good Thanksgiving.
And to you as well.
Thank you.
We want to thank Kevin for joining us on Short Hops this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Wichita Wingnuts skipper, please send them to us at AskKevin@MinorLeagueSportsReport.com. That's AskKevin@MinorLeagueSportsReport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give the skipper a little time to review them before we record the show on Monday. We want to thank you for joining us this week. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, wishing you a very happy Thanksgiving and hoping that we see you next week on Short Hops.